Hello, time travelers, and welcome, new time travelers. As always, if you're new to this channel and enjoy learning about history, one event at a time, then don't forget to hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. Without further ado, let's get into it. Today, we're going to start out in 105 BCE, when the Roman army was defeated by the Germanic tribes in the Battle of Arousio. In 891, Firmus was elected pope. His Pathimus trial in 897 is one of the most bizarre incidents in Papal history. Now let's move on to 1849, when 13 Hungarian generals, the Matrals of Ereded, were executed for their role in the Hungarian Revolution of 1848 to 1849. In 1892, the English poet, widely regarded as the chief representative of the Victorian age in poetry, Alfred Lloyd Tennyson, died at the age of 83. In 1927, the English poet the jazz singer starring Al Jolson premiered in New York City, introducing the sound era of motion picture. Now let's continue with film industry. Move on to 1960, when the American adventure film Spartacus, directed by Stanley Kubrick and starring Kirk Douglas, had its world premiere. It won several Academy Awards, including Best Supporting Actor for Peter Ustinov. Now, 4 years later, in 1964, President Johnson and Philippine President Diosdado Macapal concluded 2 days of talks in Washington, D.C., with a joint committee reiterating their commitment to the defense of Southeast Asia under the SEATO Treaty. On this day in 1973, on the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur, Egypt and Syria attacked Israel, which suffered heavy casualties, but Israeli forces successfully fought back, and the war eventually ended inconclusively. Now, 3 years later, in 1973, in China, the Gang of Four have lost their influence with the death of Mao Zedong, and they were arrested. In 1981, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat was assassinated by members of the radical fringe of the Muslim opposition. 7 years before the turn of the century, in 1993, Michael Jordan retired from professional baseball, saying, "I have nothing else to prove," only to return in March of 1995. The turn of the century of 2000, near Sakamoto, Japan, an earthquake of a magnitude of 7.3 struck, the most powerful earthquake since the devastating Kobe earthquake of 1995. But damage and casualties were relatively low because the epicenter was in a sparsely inhabited area. 2 years later, in 2002, an explosion causes a fire and massive oil leak in the French oil tanker Limbing off the southeast coast of Yemen. It was later determined that a terrorist attack caused the disaster. In 2006, the UN Secretary Council issues a statement to North Korea warning it not to engage in a nuclear test and presses it to return to the six-party talks it abandoned in 2005. Now, our final event happened 3 years later, in 2009, when the automobile parts manufacturer Delhi emerges from 4 years of bankruptcy with the sale of most of its assets to lenders and its former parent, General Motors. To recognize Delhi Holdings has 4 plants left of the 44 Delhi had when it was spun off by General Motors in 1999. It only took 10 years for them to sell that off. Anyway, now that we have come back to 2024 and our current history, why don't we head over to the animal kingdom for our 55th animal fact? Koalas have fingerprints almost identical to humans. It is so hard to distinguish between the fingerprints of a koala and humans that even under a microscope, it's hard to tell. There are even reported cases of koala fingerprints confusing forensics at crime scenes. So if you can't blame your twin on your crime on your twin, you can blame a koala? Okay. Now let's head into the science lab for our 55th science fact. If you ever felt bored, don't think of it as a bad thing, because being bored is actually a high arousal state psychologically. This is because when you're bored, your heart rate increases. So I guess it's a good thing when you get bored I don't know how that works. If anyone has any idea how that works, let me know. But as always, if you're new to this channel and enjoy learning history, one event at a time, don't forget to hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. Until next time.